Hey, welcome to part 2 of our application that we're creating called our Jokes application. In the first part we created 3 buttons. We're going to add 4 more buttons now and start doing some programming on these. Okay, I'm going to let you finish off these down here. To err as human, only young once, smile today, never let a fool kiss you. So I'm going to go through these really fast and you can do these as you watch. Okay, so now I'm finished. I've named all of my buttons as either toast or message, and as you can see in the strings, I have a different name for each one of these strings. In the final app, I have this screen here that says your message here. This is called a text view, and so we'll use one text view. I'm going to use the large text here and put that right in the center. And it's the same idea as a button. It's a resource that is a object on the screen, and so if I double click it, I'm going to give it an ID. For text views, I'm going to use TV as my prefix, and I'm going to just say this is underscore message, and instead of large text, I'm going to just leave that empty. I'm going to delete it. So the run command is either this green triangle or underneath the run menu, and once you choose the run command, it'll ask you what device you want to run this on. If you have your phone plugged in through a USB cable, your phone will show up here, and that's the preferred way to run an application. Your phone runs faster, it shows you exactly what the application will look like, and it'll automatically install the app on your phone. But for these cases, I'm capturing the screen, so I'm going to choose an emulated device. So it's a virtual phone that shows up on the screen, and you can see on the computer what it's going to look like here. Now eventually the program will actually run, and so depending on the speed of your computer, it might take you a minute, it might take you 5 minutes for actually to get here. Now our program doesn't actually do anything yet, so we've got all of our nice buttons on the screen, but we need to create the code behind them, and that's the next part of the video. So I'm going to push the little red box here on the stop application program. And let's go into the next part of our application called the Java app. So inside of this file, you will find Java code. And so it really helps to have some programming experience before you try to do Android apps. If you haven't seen any programming before, this is going to start looking confusing. If you have seen some programming, it still might look hard because Android has certainly a lot of its own unique commands. So I'll get started with a few things that are essential in every single program. First of all, notice we have the first class in our program. It's called main activity. And so this is where all the action happens. Everything in your program will happen between this bracket and the closing bracket. Now, inside of there, we have this onCreate method. And so this function from this bracket to the end is where the action happens when the program is first launched. There's a lot of coding that we'll do inside there. Even though we've only got 2 lines here, we're going to extend it to many, many lines. Now the first thing that you have to do as a programmer is to let the program know that you have variables called buttons and text views. And so you have to let the program code in Java know what your interface, your layout screen has on it. I'm going to start right here at the beginning of my class, and I'm going to declare a variable that is a button. Now, if you have an error on your screen, like this turns red here, that means it doesn't know what a button is. And so you say, well, I thought this was Android. It's supposed to know what buttons are. Well, it will if we tell it to use buttons. I'm going to choose the Alt and the Enter key and choose Import Class. Now you notice there's a new line that just popped up here in the import section called, it's importing the library for the buttons, so it knows how to program buttons now. So my first button variable I'm going to call as b_toast1 and a semicolon. So now everywhere through the rest of the program, I can refer to that button that's on the screen. And so the first thing I have to do in the onCreate section is to let the computer know which button on the screen refers to btoast1. So down here in the onCreate section, I'm going to type the letter B and underscore, and you see that it's automatically trying to tell me that it knows about that variable, so I can click here or press tab, either one. And I'm going to now tell it that is going to be equal to, so let me type out the line first and then explain it. So I'm going to type in button with a capital B, the word find, by view by ID, press tab, r.id.toast1, btoast1, and then finish it with a semicolon. Okay, so what's happening here? Well, we have this command here called find view by ID. Well, first of all, everything on the screen is called a view, whether it's a button or a text view or a menu. Everything in Android is a view. So we're finding a view by ID. Well, you remember we assigned an ID number to everything, and we called our ID btoast1. So that's where that comes from. What in the world is R? Well, R stands for resources or resource. It's a file that's generated automatically in Android whenever the program runs. And so it looks in this big list of all the resources that it has, and it will find all the button names and all the strings that we've created. And so in this case, we're finding toast1. Now, what's this? In Java, there is the idea of type casting. And so like you can turn a float number or a decimal number into an integer number by casting it as a rounded number. In this case, we're finding some object and we're making sure that it turns into a button before we assign it to btoast1. So this view here, you're going to see an awful lot. Well, after we have btoast1 set up, let's set up another one just for practice. Let's do btoast2. Now, you're going to say, why is it red? Can't resolve this symbol. It doesn't know what this variable is. Well, we have to declare it as a button up at the top. So let's put in here, comma, b underscore toast2. And now it turns purple again, so that's good. And let's do button, and let's do the same idea, find. Press the tab key, r.id. And then search for 2. I might also do the third one. Okay, now we have 3 buttons created. Let's see if we can program them to do something. The next item I have to create is called a listener. So I'm going to type in the name of the variable of the first button and put a period. Now you can see that there are lots and lots of things that Android automatically knows about buttons. And so there's this list of 100 or so objects. What we want to do is I'm going to type the word set and on, click, and you can start to see the list of options shortening. On-click listener is what I'm looking for. So I press the tab key and it'll finish the typing. On-click listener. A click listener is a program that will run when it hears or senses a button being clicked. So what happens when we set this listener? We have to create something called a new object, and you can see a hint down here that says, I think I know what you're going to type. It's on click listener. So I'm going to type in on, and sure enough, tab key. Whoa, it filled in a whole bunch of stuff for us. The important thing is that we have a new function called onClick that just showed up. And so whenever the button toast1 is clicked, we can run some code. Well, you remember, in our application, we want to create a little pop-up message, one of those toast messages, when that button is clicked. So let's create a new toast. So I'm going to type the word toast. And you can see that it automatically filled in a whole bunch of stuff for me when I selected the second item on the list. So toast, make text, main activity, this, what's all this stuff? Basically, this is telling it where the program is going to place that toast. There's a little a quotation here that's going to let us type in our message. That this is the amount of time that will show up on the how long the toast will last. It's set for a short span. We could change that if we wanted to. We could rename that as length with capitals. And you can see I have short and long as a choice, so I'm going to choose long in this case. And then finally it says period show, so it'll show the text. Well, what am I going to show? What was the first question? Let's go back to our strings. The first one was, I'm not lazy. And the answer to that was, I'm just very relaxed. Okay, and so let's test that out. Let's run it and see what happens. So you can see our application is running now, and the first button has a toast message that pops up. So that one's working. Now the other buttons don't have any programming done, so they're still dead, but at least we have one done. Now I'm going to finish the application for the first three buttons very quickly. You can type along as fast as you can. Okay, you saw that I had to actually change some of the buttons. I had mislabeled them at the beginning, and so now I have three that are working that tell a joke. Okay, so I've programmed the first three buttons. Now let's go ahead and program the second three. So first of all, let's add some more of these variables to the list. Button, and I called this one message1 underscore, let's see, message2, and button message3. Let's go in here and add some more variables. Let's say button message1 is also we need to find its ID on the layout, and so it is going to be r.id.b underscore message1. Okay, so let's pause here again. You've noticed I've added all the variables for the buttons at the top, and I've assigned each of those to a ID that's on our layout. And so now I'm ready to program message 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's go into number 4 here. So let's go into message number 1. B message 1. I'm going to do the same routine. I'm going to set on-click listener. And I'm going to create a new on-click listener. And now inside here, instead of saying on-click with a toast, I'm going to do an on-click routine that changes the text of our layout item called the text view message. And so we need to get that as well into our program. So somewhere in here, we need a new variable. It's going to be type text view. And I'm going to use TV message as the name for the variable. So I declare that at the top. Now down here where I'm gathering all of these IDs, I'm going to do the same idea, except instead of saying button each time, I'm going to say TV message equals type text view. But I also find the same ID range. And so now TV message is aware, or the Java program is aware of what TV message is. We can use that down here in our program now. So I'm going to say TV message, and there is a nice routine called set text. Do you see that? So I'm going to choose the tab key, and inside there I can set the text to something such as my first joke. To err is human, and then the second answer to that was to blame somebody else is even more human. Let's run that and see if that works. And so you can see that this first button actually put the message up there into our text view. Now, I'll let you program the other buttons. They work just like here. Okay, so I've got all the buttons programmed now. So message button 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all set to a click listener, and they each set a different message on the text view item. So let's see if that works. It looks like these buttons are all programming to do their thing, and the toast buttons, they're also set to do their toasting. There's one more thing that we should do. In each one of these strings, we have a hard-coded string into our app. Now, just like in the buttons, you're not supposed to leave hard-coded strings there. So we have a item here that says light bulb. What are we going to do? Extract the string resource. Let's try that item. And let's go this with the, let's call this string resource answer1. And you notice we have r.string.answer1. So the resources in the strings area answer1, we have a new item where we have the answer. And so you can take out these strings in your code just like we did in our buttons. Okay, so I've taken all my strings into one place. So now if you wanted to rename your jokes, you wouldn't have to go search through your code in your program. They're all here. Or if you wanted to change it into Spanish, you could also type everything right here. And so this is the final of your product here. This is your jokes app. One more thing you'd like to experiment with, that if you want to change the color of things, you can go and take a look at things like background, and you can find colors that you can choose from there. You can make your buttons different colors. You can change the screen itself if you want to do the background. You can really make your app more customized than just black and white. So experiment. So add your own jokes to your application and also modify any of the text, the size of the fonts. You can do all those with their properties in here as well.